The Curious Apprentice. In the heart of the galaxy, on a planet shrouded in an ethereal mist, lay the Celestial Garden. This mystical botanical garden was renowned for its breathtaking beauty and ancient magic. Among the garden's many visitors was Elian, a 13-year-old apprentice botanist from a nearby village. Elian lived in a small, rustic cottage on the outskirts of the village, surrounded by his mentor, Thorn's vast collection of botanical texts and specimens. Thorn, an elderly botanist with a kind heart and a wealth of knowledge, had taken Elian under his wing when Elian was just a child. Elian's curiosity and natural talent for botany had quickly made him an invaluable apprentice. One day, while exploring the village market, Elian stumbled upon an old, leather-bound book. The cover was adorned with intricate symbols that seemed to shimmer in the light. As he opened the book, he found it filled with sketches of plants he had never seen before, each accompanied by cryptic notes about their properties and habitats. The final page depicted a map leading to the Celestial Garden. Intrigued, Elian decided to embark on a journey to find this mystical place. He packed a small bag, said goodbye to Thorn, and set off early the next morning. The journey was long and arduous, but the promise of discovering new species and uncovering the garden's secrets kept him motivated. After several days of travel, Elian finally reached the entrance to the Celestial Garden. The gates were old and rusted, but they swung open with a gentle push. As he stepped inside, he was enveloped by a soft, emerald light that seemed to emanate from the very plants themselves. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers and the soft hum of unknown insects. Elian wandered through the garden, marveling at the diversity of flora. He came across a clearing where a figure stood, her back to him. She was tall and slender, with skin that shimmered like the moon and hair that flowed like the night sky. She wore a flowing robe that seemed to be woven from the very fabric of the garden. As Elian approached, the figure turned. Her eyes were deep and mysterious, filled with a wisdom that belied her youthful appearance. "Welcome, Elian," she said, her voice like a gentle breeze. "I am Lyra, the guardian of this garden. You have been expected." Elian was taken aback but felt an immediate sense of trust in Lyra. "Expected?" he repeated, his curiosity piqued. Lyra smiled. "Yes, you have a special connection to this garden. One that goes beyond mere curiosity or botanical interest." Elian's eyes widened as Lyra began to walk towards him. "Come," she said. "Let me show you the true wonders of the Celestial Garden." As they walked, Lyra explained that the garden was not just a collection of plants but a living, breathing entity with its own magic and history. Elian listened intently, his mind expanding with the possibilities. Their journey took them through hidden pathways and secret chambers, each revealing a new aspect of the garden's ancient magic. Elian felt a deep connection to the garden, as if he had been here before, though he knew he had not. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the garden, Lyra led Elian to a small clearing. In the center stood an ancient tree, its branches twisted and gnarled with age. "This is the heartwood," Lyra said, her voice filled with reverence. "The source of the garden's power and magic." Elian reached out a hand, feeling an energy emanating from the tree that seemed to resonate with his own heartbeat. "You see, Elian," Lyra continued, "you are not just a visitor here. You are a part of this garden's future. A future that is yet to be written." Elian looked at Lyra, his eyes filled with questions. But before he could ask any, Lyra's expression turned serious. "There is much to learn and much to decide. But for now, let us enjoy the beauty of this garden and the magic it holds." The Guardian's Secret. As the cavern continued to tremble and the ship's glow intensified, Lyra, or the Alien Queen, as Leo had come to know her, stood steadfast, her eyes locked on Leo. The air was thick with an otherworldly energy, and the symbols on the ship's surface pulsed with a life of their own. "Come," Lyra said, her voice calm despite the chaos around them. "Let me show you the truth of our people." Leo hesitated, but Lyra's gaze was compelling. He followed her as she approached the ship, the tendrils of light wrapping around them like ethereal chains. The hum grew louder, and the symbols on the ship began to glow brighter, illuminating the dark cavern. As they reached the ship, Lyra raised her hand, and a section of the hull slid open, revealing a dimly lit interior. Leo stepped inside, his heart pounding in his chest. The interior was unlike anything he had ever seen, a maze of crystalline structures and pulsing energy conduits. "This is the heart ship of Thyasia," Lyra explained, her voice echoing off the crystalline walls. "It is the source of our power and the key to our existence." Leo's eyes widened as he explored the ship. Everywhere he looked, there were ancient artifacts and mysterious devices that seemed to defy understanding. "Why is it here?" Leo asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's expression turned somber. "The heart ship is a prison, a warning, and a guardian. It holds the secrets of our past and the key to our future." As they delved deeper into the ship, Lyra began to tell Leo the story of the Valari. They were an ancient race, born from the stars themselves, with a civilization that spanned galaxies. However, their pursuit of perfection and immortality had led them down a dangerous path. "We sought to transcend our mortal forms," Lyra explained, her eyes reflecting a deep sorrow. "We created the heart ship to harness the energy of the universe, to become gods among stars. But our ambition was our downfall." Leo listened intently as Lyra revealed the Valari's darkest secret: they had become trapped in their own creation. The heart ship, meant to grant them immortality, had instead become a prison, sustaining their lives but also limiting their growth and freedom. "The Valari you see above," Lyra continued, "are not truly alive. They are echoes, sustained by the heart ship's energy. We have been stuck in this state for millennia, unable to change or evolve." Leo's mind reeled with the implications. The perfect, timeless beings he had admired were actually trapped in a state of suspended animation. "Why me?" Leo asked, feeling the weight of Lyra's words. "Why did you choose me for this?" Lyra's gaze was piercing. "You see the world differently, Leo. You see the beauty in imperfection and the value in change. You are the key to our freedom." As the ship's energy pulsed around them, Leo realized the enormity of the decision before him. He could choose to free the Valari, allowing them to evolve and grow once more, or he could maintain the status quo, keeping them in their perfect, yet trapped, state. The choice was not simple. On one hand, freeing the Valari could lead to unpredictable consequences, potentially disrupting the balance of the galaxy. On the other hand, leaving them trapped would condemn them to an eternal existence devoid of true life. Leo looked at Lyra, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and desperation. He knew that whatever decision he made, it would change not just the Valari, but himself as well. "I need time to think," Leo said finally, his voice firm despite the turmoil inside him. Lyra nodded, a small smile on her lips. "You have until tomorrow, Leo. Tomorrow, you will decide the fate of the Valari." The shadow in the mist. As Leo stood in the heart of the cavern, the ship's energy pulsing around him, he felt a sense of unease that went beyond the immediate danger. The Queen's words echoed in his mind, "You are the key." But to what, and why him? Before he could ask more questions, a figure emerged from the shadows of the cavern. He was tall and lean, with eyes that seemed to absorb the light around him, leaving only an unsettling void. "Kale," the Queen said, her voice neutral, but with a hint of caution. Kale's gaze locked onto Leo, and for a moment, they just stared at each other. There was something familiar about Kale, yet Leo couldn't quite place him. "Who is he?" Leo asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Kale smiled, a thin, mirthless smile. "Someone who knows the truth about this place and its inhabitants," he said, his voice low and smooth. The Queen stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "Kale was once a part of our community," she explained. "But he chose to leave, to seek his own path." Kale's eyes never left Leo's face. "I left because I saw the truth," he said. The Valari are not what they seem. They are trapped, stuck in a cycle of perfection that is actually a prison. Leo's mind reeled with the implications. He had begun to suspect this, but hearing it from someone else made it feel more real. "Why are you here now?" the Queen asked, her voice firm but controlled. "I've come to warn Leo," Kale replied. "He has a choice to make, one that will determine the fate of the Valari. But he needs to know the full truth before he decides." The Queen's expression turned cold. "You have no right to interfere, Kale. This is not your decision to make." Kale shrugged. "Perhaps not, but I have a right to tell the truth. And Leo has a right to know it." Leo felt a surge of confusion and fear. Who could he trust? The Queen, who seemed to hold secrets and mysteries beyond his comprehension, or Kale, who spoke of truths and warnings? "Tell me," Leo said finally, looking at Kale. "What truth do I need to know?" Kale took a step closer, his eyes intense. "The Valari are not just trapped, they are also dying. Their perfection is a facade, a mask for their decay. If you choose to free them, you risk unleashing chaos into the galaxy. But if you leave them as they are, you condemn them to an eternal existence devoid of true life." The cavern seemed to grow darker, the shadows deepening as if they were listening to Kale's words. Leo felt the weight of his decision bearing down on him. "Why me?" he asked again, this time looking at both Kale and the Queen. "Why do I have to make this choice?" Kale's smile returned, this time with a hint of sadness. "Because, Leo, you are the only one who can see beyond the surface. You are the only one who can understand the true nature of the Valari and the consequences of your choice." The Queen's expression remained unreadable, but her voice was laced with a subtle urgency. "Leo, you must decide soon. The fate of the Valari hangs in the balance." As the tension in the cavern reached a boiling point, Leo realized that he was not just making a choice for the Valari, he was making a choice for himself. He was choosing between the comfort of ignorance and the burden of knowledge, between the safety of the status quo and the uncertainty of change. With a deep breath, Leo made his decision. "I need to see more," he said. "I need to understand the Valari and their world before I can make this choice." The Queen nodded, a small, almost imperceptible nod. "Then let us show you," she said. "Let us take you to the heart of the garden, where the truth awaits." The heart of the garden. As Leo stood in the vast cavern, the heart of Tyasia, he felt the weight of the Queen's words settling upon him. The ship, half buried in the stone, pulsed with an otherworldly energy, its symbols glowing like embers that refused to die. The Queen's gaze was fixed on him, her eyes reflecting a deep intensity. "This is the heart ship of Tyasia," she repeated, her voice firm but laced with a hint of sadness. "It holds the secrets of our past and the key to our future." Leo's eyes wandered back to the ship, his mind racing with questions. "What do you mean by prison and warning?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The Queen stepped closer to the ship, her robes flowing behind her like a dark river. "The heart ship was created to harness the energy of the universe, to grant us immortality and perfection. But it became something more, a prison that sustains our lives yet limits our growth and freedom." As she spoke, the cavern began to shift around them. The walls seemed to dissolve, revealing hidden chambers and ancient ruins. Lyra led Leo through these passages, each one revealing a piece of the Valari's history. They came to a large chamber filled with ancient artifacts and mysterious devices. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it, a small, glowing crystal. "This is the core of Tyasia," Lyra explained. "It is the source of our power and the heart of the garden." Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. She was ancient, her skin wrinkled and her eyes filled with a deep wisdom. "Ariaea," Lyra said, her voice filled with reverence. "She is the guardian of the core and the keeper of our secrets." Ariaea approached Leo, her eyes locked on his. "You have been chosen to decide our fate," she said, her voice like a gentle breeze. You must understand the true nature of the Valari and the consequences of your choice. Leo felt a surge of fear mixed with determination. He knew that this decision would not only affect the Valari but also himself. Why me? He asked again, looking at Ariea. Aria's expression was compassionate. You see the world differently, Leo. You see the beauty in imperfection and the value in change. You are the key to our freedom, but you must also understand the risks. As Ariea spoke, the chamber began to fill with visions of the past and the future. Leo saw the Valari in their prime, powerful and wise, but also saw the decay that had set in over the millennia. He saw the garden thriving, but also saw the potential chaos that could ensue if the Valari were freed. The visions faded, and Leo was left standing in the silent chamber, the weight of his decision bearing down on him. What do I need to do? He asked, looking at Lyra and Ariea. Lyra's gaze was steady. You must decide whether to free the Valari or leave them as they are. The choice is yours, but know that it will change everything. Ariea nodded in agreement. The core of Tyasia holds the power to free us. But it also holds the power to destroy us. You must choose wisely. Leo took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew that this decision would be the most important one he would ever make. I need time to think, he said finally, his voice firm despite the turmoil inside him. Lyra and Ariea nodded in unison. You have until tomorrow, Lyra said. Tomorrow, you will decide the fate of the Valari. The choice of destiny. The night was filled with an eerie silence, the only sound being the soft rustling of the garden's leaves in the gentle breeze. Leo stood at the edge of the garden, his eyes fixed on the stars above, his mind racing with the weight of his decision. He thought about the Valari, trapped in their perfect yet lifeless existence. He thought about the potential chaos that could ensue if he freed them, but also about the possibility of renewal and growth. He thought about Lyra, Ariea, and Kale, each with their own motivations and truths. As the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Leo made his way back to the heartship. Lyra and Ariea were already there, their faces serene but tense with anticipation. Today is the day, Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. Today, you decide our fate. Leo took a deep breath, feeling the gravity of his decision. He looked at the heartship, its symbols pulsing with energy, and then at Lyra and Ariea. I have made my choice, he said finally, his voice firm. Lyra's eyes locked onto his. What is it, Leo? Leo's heart pounded in his chest as he spoke the words that would change everything. I choose to free the Valari. The air seemed to hold its breath as Lyra and Ariea exchanged a glance. Then, with a nod, Lyra raised her hand, and the symbols on the heartship began to glow brighter. The energy surged, filling the cavern with an intense light. The ship began to hum, its power coursing through the garden. The ground trembled, and the air vibrated with the release of ancient energy. As the light reached its peak, the Valari began to stir. Their forms, once static and perfect, now began to shift and change. They were no longer just statues, they were living, breathing beings. The garden erupted into a cacophony of sounds and colors. Plants bloomed and withered in rapid succession, and the sky filled with a kaleidoscope of hues. The very fabric of reality seemed to be unraveling and reweaving itself. Leo watched in awe as the Valari, now free, began to explore their new existence. They stumbled and fell, but they also laughed and cried. They were imperfect, but they were alive. Kale appeared beside him, a smile on his face. You have given them a chance, he said. A chance to live, to grow, and to evolve. Lyra and Ariea approached, their faces filled with a mix of emotions. Lyra's eyes were tearful, while Aria's were filled with a deep wisdom. Thank you, Leo, Lyra said, her voice trembling. You have given us a new beginning. Ariea nodded. But remember, this is just the start. The journey ahead will be fraught with challenges and uncertainties. But it will also be filled with possibilities and growth. As the garden continued to transform around them, Leo felt a sense of peace wash over him. He knew that he had made the right choice, not just for the Valari, but for himself as well. The days that followed were chaotic but exhilarating. The Valari learned to adapt to their new existence, and the garden flourished in ways it never had before. Leo stayed, helping them navigate their new world and learning from them in return. One day, as he stood in the heart of the garden, surrounded by the vibrant colors and sounds of life, Leo realized that his journey had changed him. He was no longer the same boy who had stumbled upon the celestial garden, he was now a part of something much greater. "Thank you," he said to Lyra, who stood beside him, her eyes shining with happiness. "For what?" she asked, her voice soft. "For showing me the true meaning of life and growth," Leo replied. "For giving me a chance to be part of something extraordinary." Lyra smiled, her hand reaching out to touch his shoulder. "You were always meant to be here, Leo. You were always meant to be a part of our story." And with that, Leo knew that he had found his place in the universe, a place where he could grow, learn, and thrive among the wonders of the celestial garden. Epilogue. Years passed, and the celestial garden became a beacon of hope and change in the galaxy. The Valari, once trapped in perfection, now thrived in their imperfections. They explored the universe, sharing their knowledge and wisdom with other civilizations. Leo remained in the garden, a guardian and a friend to the Valari. He continued to learn from them and grow alongside them. His story became a legend, a tale of a young boy who had changed the course of history with a single choice. And in the heart of the garden, the heart ship of Tyasia stood as a reminder of the power of freedom and the beauty of imperfection. Its symbols still pulsed with energy, a testament to the magic that lay within the celestial garden and the hearts of those who called it home.